I'm 48 years old and I've worked as a police officer in Alaska ever since I was 25. I love my job and I would never trade it for anything, but like any occupation, it's got its ups and downs. But this one call I received last March was by far the most horrifying experience I've ever had. I was on my nightly patrol at around 8 p.m. when dispatch radioed in that there was a 1090. Those who don't know, a 1090 is code for an alarm in progress. I was the nearest unit to the address, so I headed over to see what was going on. It was reported that a silent alarm to a warehouse was set off. These types of calls were often pretty unpredictable since about half of them were false alarms, like an employee accidentally setting off the alarm, while the other half could be an actual true break-in. I always treat every situation with caution, since I've learned over the years it's best to be ready for anything. I flipped on my lights. The address was about 10 minutes away, on a pretty quiet road, with a few businesses that I was familiar with. Upon arrival, I pulled into the parking lot with my bright side to see if there was any visible signs of forced entry, such as a broken window, but everything looked good. I looped around the building, noticing 3 semi-truck trailers of the loading dock, and assumed that it was some sort of false alarm. The building looked like it had been locked up for the day, so I waited outside the main entrance until the owner was contacted. He said there should be a janitor inside and that he'd give him a call to let him know what was going on. I called for backup since we generally tend to involve multiple officers in a situation like this for safety, and to also secure a perimeter in case the subject was trying to escape. After about 15 minutes, 3 backup units arrived. Now feeling more comfortable, I got out of the car. Along with another officer, we walked up to the front to peer through the window to see if anyone was inside. The owner still wasn't able to get hold of the janitor on shift, so he told us that he'd bring a key. As we looked inside, we surprisingly noticed a man down the hallway and waved him down to come out and talk. He came to the front door and introduced himself as the janitor, so I radioed into the dispatch to let the owner know that the janitor would let us in and he wouldn't be needed. I explained the situation to him and he seemed pretty shocked, telling me that he hadn't seen anything out of the ordinary. At this point, we were under the assumption that it was a false alarm, but we still wanted to do a once-over of the building just to be sure. Janitor asked if he could get back to working, explaining that he had a lot of work to do, but we told him it could put him in danger if there was someone inside, so I asked him to wait on the bench. He seemed like a friendly guy, so we told him we'd make it quick. The building had 2 levels. The first level was mainly boxes and packaging, and the second level was much smaller but only had offices. We did a sweep through the first floor and didn't find anything, so we took to the elevator up to the second floor. As it opened, we turned on our flashlights, since the nighttime lights in the hallway were very dim. We cleared the first 2 offices, being very cautious since we were in unfamiliar rooms with no lights. As we entered the third office, we found our first red flag. A large duffel bag was stuffed in the corner under the desk, filled with money, a safe, and a miscellaneous item. I assumed we'd taken from packaging boxes downstairs on the first floor. Called it in asking for any more available units to come since we were already possibly facing a robbery in progress. We finished searching the second floor, not finding anyone or anything. I split up from my partner as we got off the elevator. He went to the front to question the janitor, while I went into the back, into the main area, to search for more clues. Strangely, I noticed a phone on the floor in the corner between the wall and a cardboard box. I picked it up, bringing it up to the front, and asked the janitor if it was his. Upon asking, he told me that it was his, and I handed it back to him. But I asked him to unlock it to prove it was his, and as I said that, he froze up and started acting suspicious. After a brief pause, he told me that it wasn't his and explained that it was probably another worker's phone. He gave it back to me, and I turned it back on. Looking at the screen, my eyes widened. I saw 5 missed calls and 1 voicemail message from a contact labelled boss. I instantly knew something was off and I detained the janitor since he should have been able to get into the phone if it was his. I put them in the back of my car and went back into the building and continued searching. I went back to the area where I found the phone and opened the garages leading to the back. I saw 3 semi-truck trailers from earlier and stepped towards them outside. At that moment I heard a faint muffled screaming coming from the back of one of the trailers. I drew my gun, opening up the trailer, and I was met with a man tied up in the back, wearing a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, absolutely drenched in sweat. I cut him free and I asked who he was, and he told me he was a janitor and that some guy snuck in and attacked him as he was coming back inside after taking the trash out. The intruder took his uniform and put it on, then tied him up and threw him in the back of the trailer. I walked him to the front where I handed him the phone, and he was able to unlock it, proving his identity. We arrested the man who posed as the janitor and took him to jail. Glad that I followed my instincts and continued to look when it originally sounded like a false alarm.